They tell you it is about saving the planet. They tell you it is about sustainable agriculture and feeding a growing population. But what if the man who told you to stop eating meat is quietly becoming the largest owner of the land required to produce it? What if the sudden spike in your grocery bill, the scarcity of real products, and the push for synthetic alternatives are not accidental failures of the market, but a calculated, engineered phase of a much darker financial plan? Look at your receipt from the grocery store this week. Does it feel like you are paying more for less? That knot in your stomach when you see the price of beef, or eggs, or even flour, that isn't just inflation. That is the sound of a door closing. A door that used to lead to food independence, now slamming shut to lock you into a system where you don't own what you eat. We are watching the greatest transfer of physical assets in human history, hidden behind a smile and a sweater. While you are distracted by culture wars and political noise, the ground beneath your feet, literally, is being bought up, fenced off, and financialized. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments. Are you seeing local farms disappear in your area? Because today, we aren't just talking about farming. We are ripping the mask off the Great Food Reset. If you want the unfiltered truth about who will own your dinner plate in 2030, hit that subscribe button right now. To understand what Bill Gates is doing today, we have to look at a period of history that was erased from your textbooks. We need to talk about the Enclosure Movement of 18th century England. Before the Industrial Revolution, peasants had access to common land. They could graze a cow, grow vegetables, and feed their families. They were poor, yes, but they had sovereignty. They weren't dependent on a corporation for their survival. Then, the rich landlords discovered they could make more money by grazing sheep for wool to feed the textile mills than they could by letting peasants grow food. So, they passed the Enclosure Acts. They put up fences. They kicked the peasants off the land. The result was a massive class of people who had no way to feed themselves other than working in factories for starvation wages, buying food from the very landlords who stole their land. Sound familiar? Fast forward to 2024. The players have changed, but the playbook is exactly the same. Instead of English lords, we have tech billionaires and hedge funds like BlackRock and Vanguard. Instead of wool for textile mills, we have carbon credits and biofuels. Gates isn't buying 270,000 acres of farmland to hand it back to the people. He is effectively enclosing the American commons. When a billionaire buys 10,000 acres in Nebraska, that isn't just an investment. It is the removal of that land from the local market. It drives up the price of land so high that young, independent farmers cannot afford to enter the game. The average age of an American farmer is nearly 60. As they retire, who buys the land? Not their children. They can't afford the inheritance tax or the machinery. The land is bought by holding companies, masked LLCs, and investment trusts. Sound familiar? It is the destruction of the independent producer, replaced by the corporate serfdom of the food supply. In the 1930s, during the Dust Bowl, banks seized millions of acres from family farms. They consolidated the food supply into the hands of a few conglomerates. That consolidation gave us the ultra-processed, chemical-laden food pyramid that has made America the sickest developed nation on Earth. And now we are in phase 2. Sound familiar? They created the poison, and now they want to sell you the cure. But the cure involves you owning nothing and eating what they print in a lab. They are betting on a future where real food is a luxury item, just like a Gucci bag or a Ferrari. If you want a steak from a cow that ate grass under the sun, you will pay a premium that only the top 10% can afford. For the rest of us, there is the sustainable option, the processed, patent-protected slurry that Gates is heavily invested in. This brings us to the terrifying reality of vertical integration. In the late 19th century, the robber barons owned the oil wells, the railroads, and the refineries. Today, the new robber barons want to own the soil, the seeds, and the synthetic alternatives. They are burning the candle at both ends, and you are the wax.
But here is where most people get it wrong. They think Bill Gates is buying farmland because he wants to control the production of corn and soy. That is too small. That is thinking like a farmer. Gates thinks like a monopolist. The twist isn't that he wants to grow food. The twist is that he wants to fundamentally change what food is so that you cannot legally produce it yourself. We need to look at the razor and blade business model. You sell the razor cheap, but you make billions on the blades. In the food world, the razor is the land, but the blade is the intellectual property. Gates isn't just buying dirt. He is heavily invested in companies like Monsanto, now Bayer, and seed genetics technologies. When you control the land, you dictate what seeds are planted. When you dictate the seeds, you mandate the chemicals required to grow them. But it gets darker. What if the farmland isn't even for growing food for humans? Recent data suggests a massive portion of this corporate-owned land is being designated for biofuels and feedstock for synthetic biology vats. They are turning America's breadbasket into a feedstock generator for their patented lab-grown meat factories. They are removing the animal from the ecosystem entirely. And who holds the patents on the synthetic meat processes? Who holds the patents on the gene-edited soy that goes into the vat? You won't believe the name on the patent filings. It is not just Gates. It is a network of shell companies and philanthropic ventures that lead back to the same few boardrooms. The receipt is wilder than you think. And when you see the financial mechanism they are using to make this land profitable without even growing food, you will understand why your grocery bill is never going down again.
Welcome to the machine. Let us strip away the saving the world marketing and look at the cold, hard financial mechanics. We are going to decode the 3 pillars of the Great Food Reset. The first pillar is the assetization of nature, or inflation hedging. When money becomes trash, the wealthy don't hold cash. They hold hard assets. Farmland is the ultimate hard asset. It historically outperforms the S&P 500 with lower volatility. The stat is that over the last 20 years, farmland has delivered an average return of roughly 11 to 12%. The reality is Gates holding 270,000 acres isn't a hobby. It is a hedge. As inflation destroys your savings, his land value skyrockets. He effectively transfers wealth from the holder of the dollar, which is you, to the holder of the land, which is him. But here is the parasitic finance element: land scarcity. By buying up massive tracts, they artificially restrict supply.
When supply goes down and the population goes up, the value of the asset explodes. It is engineered scarcity. The second pillar is carbon rent-seeking, the greenwashing scam. This is the most complex and insidious part. Understanding this is crucial. The global elite are pushing for net zero carbon goals. Corporations like Microsoft, Amazon, and BlackRock need to offset their pollution to meet ESG, environmental, social, and governance scores. How do you offset pollution? You buy carbon credits. Where do carbon credits come from? Land. If Gates owns 270,000 acres, he doesn't need to farm it for food to make money. He can claim he is practicing regenerative agriculture or carbon sequestration, trapping carbon in the soil. He can sell these carbon credits to other massive corporations for hundreds of millions of dollars. The consequence is that the land is no longer incentivized to produce maximum calories for the population. It is incentivized to produce maximum credits for the portfolio. This is moral hazard on a planetary scale. They can pollute with one hand and use the land they bought, driving up your food prices to absolve themselves of the sin with the other hand. The land becomes a financial instrument, not a source of nourishment. The third pillar is the synthetic biology monopoly. Let us talk about the numbers regarding fake food. The investment in the alternative protein sector has hit over $3.1 billion in single-year spikes. Gates is a major backer of companies like Impossible Foods, Beyond Meat, and Upside Foods, which is lab-grown meat. Here is the mechanism. First, squeeze the traditional farmer. Use ESG regulations and inflation to make cattle ranching and traditional farming too expensive. Fertilizer prices are up 300% in some regions. Second, demonize the competitor. Fund media campaigns stating that traditional farming destroys the planet. Third, introduce the solution. Patented, lab-grown alternatives. Why patents? You cannot patent a cow. A cow reproduces itself. Nature is open source. But you can patent a gene-edited cell line in a bioreactor. If the world eats cows, wealth is distributed among thousands of ranchers. If the world eats Impossible Burgers, wealth is centralized into the hands of the patent holder. It is the software model applied to biology. They want to turn your caloric intake into a subscription service, sustenance as a service. The number you need to know is that the USDA estimates that 30 cents of every dollar spent on food goes to the farmer. That number is dropping. In the synthetic future, the farmer gets zero. The IP holder gets everything. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a business plan. It is visible in the earnings calls and the patent filings. They call it disruption. I call it engineered collapse of the natural order. They are building a moat around the human stomach. By controlling the land, they control the inputs. By controlling the patents, they control the outputs. You are just the end user dependent on their supply chain for your survival.
We need to stop living in denial. The food reset is not coming. It is here. The systems we trusted to protect us, the USDA, the FDA, the financial regulators, are caught in a revolving door with the very industries stripping the assets from the American people. The modern system is faster and global. In the 18th century, it took decades to enclose the land. Today, with high-frequency trading and algorithmic asset management, they can buy a state's worth of farmland in a fiscal quarter. The danger isn't just that food will get expensive. The danger is that autonomy will become extinct. If you rely on a centralized, patented, corporate-owned system for your daily bread, you have no leverage. You have no freedom. You are a subject,
not a citizen. We are walking on borrowed time. Every acre they buy is an acre taken out of the hands of a family that would have stewarded it for generations. Every patent they file is a wall built between you and nature. Are we wiser now, seeing the game for what it is? Or are we walking the same path as the 18th century peasants, just in better suits, staring at smartphones while the fences go up around us? Don't let them enclose your mind. If you refuse to eat the bugs, if you refuse to live in the pod, and if you demand the right to know who owns the ground you walk on, you need to share this video. The algorithm hates this content. It relies on you to spread the truth. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Next week, we are exposing the water rights monopoly, because once they own the food, they are coming for the water. Stay skeptical, stay free. I will see you on the other side.